Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're all having a great day. Forgot to start my intro there. Oh well, it's the way it goes sometimes. But this is author R. Weir, Bringing Life to Characters, where I asked that question, though I actually forgot to do that last week on my show. So tonight I got to make sure I ask that, though this guest has actually been on my show before. And I'm happy to have her on, and we're going to bring her up now, and we're going to see if I can mess up her last name. Margaret Mizushima.
Oh, you did great, Rand.
Yay!
Yes, yay.
Yes. Hi, Margaret. Good to see you again. We actually talked earlier in the week because you had some internet problems on your last podcast. We're crossing our fingers that no issues. So, how
That's
are
right.
things in Washington these days?
They're just beautiful, just beautiful. We have sunny weather, feels so much like fall. Our temperatures are in the low 60s, and we're expecting some rain to come Thursday, but this part of the week has just been beautiful.
Well, we've been cold we were only got like to 50 yesterday, which, you used to live in Colorado, so you know the weather this time of year. It's
That's
all over the
right.
map. You'll be coming to town, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but it sounds like it'll at least be a little warmer when you get here, but always have to dress for everything in Colorado. So,
Mm-hmm.
but tell us a little bit about yourself, all the important things people know, and then we'll get going.
Well, I write the Timber Creek Canine Mystery Series, and it features Canine Robo and his partner, Maddie. She's a deputy in the Timber Creek County Sheriff's Department. And the third protagonist is Cole Walker, and he is a veterinarian. Those three solve crimes in their small mountain community. This is set in the high country of Colorado, kind of like a place I grew up in. Although the place is fictional, you can't find it on a map. But that's what I've been doing. Now, before I started writing, I was a speech therapist. I'm a retired speech therapist. My husband is a retired veterinarian, and I used to help out in his clinic after hours and on weekends. So I kind of knew that life. And some of the things that I observed him do appear in the books because Cole Walker in the books is active in treating different animals that come into his clinic, and he also discovers things that he passes on to Maddie as clues in the case. So got an active veterinarian, a very active canine handler, and her dog constantly up in the high country. These mysteries are outdoor mysteries, so constantly on the go and getting things done, solving murder and mayhem that's happening in Timber Creek, Colorado.
So your husband Charlie, which I've met a few times, we actually were talking one day, and I go,
Right.
I think that's when we were at Left Coast Crime. I think that's Margaret's husband. After a while, because he didn't have a name badge on, and I think because I'd only met him like briefly one time before at
Yeah.
Falchion, but
Yeah.
he's a veterinarian, retired now. I'm assuming,
That's
right?
that's right.
So I always ask this question, Cole is a veterinarian. Did you base Cole on Charlie in any way? Any personalities, traits that are similar?
I always like to tell people that I used my husband Charlie's best characteristics, loaded them up in Cole's personality and character.
He doesn't have any bad person traits, though, does he, Charlie? Come on, they're all
Oh,
good, right?
we won't talk about that tonight, but I did really sculpt the way Cole manages his clinic, kind of the way Charlie managed his. And it's a country clinic. He does a mixed practice of both small animals and large animals. And so that's the kind of practice my husband had. And so, yeah, the character is based loosely on my husband, and definitely, definitely, Cole has some great characteristics, and yes, so does my husband.
So yeah, so you all raised, and you helped him as well when you weren't working because you had your own side business as well. But you raised what, cattle, Angus cattle, and I'm reading off here because I got it off here: quarter horses, dogs, cats, and of course you raised two daughters as well.
That's right.
So what of all those animals was the most challenging to deal with? Was there any of those that were like really much harder to handle?
Oh, I just got to laugh because the have you ever raised cattle?
Oh no.
Oh gosh, cows, cows really, you've heard the term party till the cows come home. Well, cows love to leave home. They love the grass that's on the other side of the fence. And so they can be difficult to keep in. Charlie and I have spent many an evening, we raced Black Angus, many a night searching for bulls that have gotten out of their fencing, running through cornfields or whatnot, black bulls in the dark, searching for these animals to put them back in their pen. And we almost always, in the last, I'd say the last 10 or 15 years that we did that, we always had a great dog, border collies. And so these border collies would be out there helping us and keeping things, trying to keep things tight, trying to keep the cows where they belonged. They were the most difficult, in my opinion. It got to where, as we got older and older, I was just like, "Oh, Charlie, we got to quit this business."
So the border collies would they help herd the cows and keep them in line and stuff?
They sure would, and they could also retrieve cows.
Yeah.
You could ask them to go out and bring cows in off of the pasture, and they'd run around and go to the back of the herd and push them towards the gate. So we had one dog that was just, I mean, she was just worth her weight in gold. She could do anything. Charlie could direct her to run down the road and bring a cow that was running away, and she would skirt around that cow and bring her back to him. So not all of our dogs were that good, but
Yeah.
Molly was her name, and she was.
And you grew up on a farm, so that was something that was your life as a child as well. And did you imagine that you would continue to do that as you got older as well? You enjoyed it that much?
I had always hoped for that, but as I went into college and focused on getting a degree in speech language pathology, I knew that I would need to be working near a town, and so for a certain number of years I was living in a town. When Charlie and I married, that was when we started realizing that maybe through combined forces and combined incomes, we might be able to get a little acreage and start having the type of life that we both had as children. I grew up on a registered Hereford cattle ranch, which then later in Colorado, we raised registered limousine. And Charlie grew up on a vegetable farm outside of Grand Junction. So we both were very used to living on the land and working in agriculture. And so it was kind of a dream to be able to have a small acreage and cattle and horses, which we were able to do for a while. So that was good.
Yeah, that's it sounds like it's hard work, but I'm sure it's fulfilling as well. I grew up in Iowa, farms everywhere, and everyone always thinks I grew up on a farm. And I said, no, I lived in Des Moines.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
near a farm, but I never worked on a farm. But there were times when I kind of thought maybe I missed out on something.
Well, it is definitely, it kind of gets in your blood. Um, we we both lived in Fort Collins while we were going to school, and then lived in LaPorte for a short period of time, and then able to buy this acreage outside of Wellington, Colorado, and that's where we settled. We lived there for 40 years. We moved to Washington State about 3 years ago to be closer to family, and that was when Charlie retired. I had retired and started writing before that.
Right.
So when he retired, that's when we decided it was time for us to move.
Yeah. So you said you started writing. So what kind of motivated you to be an author? What was that kind of turning point that says, I want to try to get into the crazy world and write books?
Oh, first of all, I didn't know a thing about it. I didn't know how crazy this world was. Did you when you first started writing?
Not
No,
really, but I was like,
you
I kind
learn
of
right
wanted to do
away.
it. You just don't realize what's all involved, and especially for me being independent, it's
Yes,
you got to do
you
it all
have a
yourself.
you have a skill set above and beyond what I have for sure. But I started probably wanting to write nonfiction while I was still practicing as a speech pathologist. I worked in a hospital setting, and then after that, I started my own clinic and ran that clinic for about 10 years. So at the time that I retired, I had sold that clinic, had a little nest egg, and I thought, now's my chance to write. I can get a book published within a year, right?
Yeah, just that simple, right?
Yeah, yeah. You see, I knew nothing about it, right? So I started trying to write nonfiction and kind of got chapter one of this book that I was really interested in. And then I decided to just try my hand at writing a story. And I never wrote chapter two. I just kept writing fiction. I loved it. Put together a manuscript in 4 months, thought that it was ready to go. And that manuscript will never see the light of day. It is so bad.
Is it filed away somewhere in your office there for
It is.
for
It
some
is.
historical purposes?
That's right. So after that, I started attending great Colorado craft conferences, one in Denver called Colorado Gold, which I bet
Mhm.
you've been to too, and then the one in Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak Writers sponsors that one. So the Pikes Peak Writers Conference in the spring and Colorado Gold in the fall, those two conferences were where I learned everything about fiction writing and so much about the business of writing. And it took me 10 years to get a manuscript that finally got accepted by an agent. Another couple years, and we found a publisher. So many, many, many revisions on that first manuscript. It was actually my fifth, the one that finally got somebody's attention, and the one that finally got me an agent and a publisher. But it had been through so many revisions, I couldn't even tell you how many. So, yeah.
So, were there times when you're like, did I make a mistake, or am I silly to keep going, or were you just like, I'm persistent and I'm gonna do this?
I did that for years. I had that attitude for years. Um, I had been through the death of a sister-in-law who was a dear, dear person and a sister to me. And that summer, and then I was scheduled to go to Colorado Gold that fall. And I thought, this is silly. I need to be going back to work or something. I can't continue to pretend that someday I'll be published. And so it was going to be my last conference. And that's where my agent was encouraging me to hang in there, that
Right.
we would find a publisher someday. And she and I pitched to Matthew Martz of Crooked Lane Books. Crooked Lane was in their startup year. 2014 was their year that they were established. Their first books were scheduled to come out in 2015. And we pitched to him. He wanted to see the manuscript. They got back to me that they really didn't like my plot, but they loved everything else about it. So I talked to,
Good character, if you've got good characters, I
they
mean, I wrote
loved,
about that in a newsletter earlier, or one of my newsletters. You can have a story, but if you don't have good characters, they don't work together. And so that's a good, you had good bones to work with, it sounds like.
that was the thing that they kept saying, is we just love these characters and we think you've got a great setting. Will you talk to us about this plot? And it turned out that I needed to simplify the plot quite a bit. They wanted a 3-act structure, and I had been using Christopher Vogler's, what is it, a 12-point structure, the writer's journey.
Yeah.
And so we talked over the phone. Matt's assistant, Nikki Power, at that time was the one I was talking with, and she just explained, what they wanted, gave me, just said, revise and resubmit when you're ready. And it took about 2 months to get ready, and Terry resubmitted for me, and they were ready to give us a 2-book contract. So thank goodness, right? Thank goodness they loved those characters.
Yep.
And I'm not the only author I've heard tell this story. I've had a couple other authors that I'm close to who got their contracts the very same way. We love your characters. Let's talk a little bit about your story. It just needs some tweaking. It needs a little bit of revision, and you'll be ready to go. So it depends on what that publishing house is really looking for. My publisher was really looking for a traditional police procedural, and I had a mystery that crossed the line into, the first part of it was really more suspense, and the mystery didn't kick in until halfway through the book. So they wanted straightforward mystery police procedural, and that's what I was able to turn it into, and use the same characters, and it worked.
So you got Maddie, Cole, and Robo. And
Right.
that first book was in the series was Killing Trail, correct?
Killing Trail.
Yeah.
Killing Trail, at the time that it was submitted, it was called Timber Creek Canine. Yep, there it is.
Oh, really? Timber Creek Canine was the original title, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite, didn't quite have the edge to it.
Yeah.
So the sales team decided to rename it, and we all kind of put our heads together, and they are the ones that came up with Killing Trail. I liked it. I was happy with it. I said, is it possible for us to use a Timber Creek Canine Mystery as a subtitle? And they said, sure. And so that kind of became our brand.
Right.
It's a gerund phrase, Killing Trail, and then, of course, the subtitle. The thing that's really funny was, in the beginning, there were a few librarians who thought K-9 meant it was a children's book.
Kindergarten through 9th grade, right? Sure.
That's pretty wide age spread for an audience if you know anything about children's books. But that got straightened out early on, and I was able to convince people that these books are really meant for adults. They certainly do cross over to the young adult reading crowd, but yeah.
Well, I'm amazed. I talk to parents all the time, and some of their kids, and their daughter says, my daughter likes mysteries and stuff, and she goes, is it appropriate to her? And I always say, well, that's your decision, so I'll tell you what's in this book you might or may like. And some of them are like, oh yeah, no big deal. These days, it's like, oh, little some 4-letter words, no big deal. Killing, yeah, no, all that stuff's on Netflix. So I watch it. When
One
I
of my,
grew up, there's no way anyone would let me read some of the stuff that they
yeah,
let teens read these days. So
I know what you're saying. One of my husband's clients just loved the books. And he said that he was going to pass it on to his grandson, who I think we thought he was like in maybe the 7th or 8th grade. We didn't know his exact age. And my husband said, well, you need to know that there's some swearing in the books.
yeah.
And he laughed. And he said, it is nothing that he hasn't already heard on the school bus.
Yeah, he probably hears way worse than was in your book, right? So.
Well, and the grandpa had already read the book, so he knew what was in it. So yeah.
It's a brave new different world. So that was your first book. So who was kind of your did you enjoy reading? I mean, you obviously all authors read books and kind of inspired them. Who were some of those authors that really inspired you to write mysteries, or even maybe the nonfiction that you started out with?
I didn't really have inspiration for the nonfiction, which may have been why it just died so quickly. but mystery writing. Oh, so many good writers. There were two that influenced my inspiration. One was J.A. Jance. She is so prolific, and she has several different series. Most of her books are suspense and or mysteries, or both typically. Her Joanna Brady series is a spunky female sheriff who tries in the first book to solve the case of her husband's murder. And her husband was running for sheriff, and he's murdered before the election. And she steps in. She's not in law enforcement, but she tries to solve his case, and she does. And then she's elected sheriff that year, and she goes ahead then and has this series, Joanna Brady. And I love the series. And what I wanted then was just a really spunky female character working in a sheriff's department, so that it would be a rural setting. And I chose this very small mountain town, so it's even more rural than the setting that Joanna Brady is in. And then the other one is the great Colorado author, Margaret Cole, who is now retired.
Yes.
She had her two protagonists and a love interest between those two protagonists, and those two never did quite get together because one of them is a priest.
Ah.
and the other one
They
is
kind of frown on that, don't they?
and they solve crimes together. And then Margaret did not bring them together in the last book. She kind of left it a little open-ended, so you kind of wondered. Yeah, anyway, great writing. And that's why I decided I wanted two protagonists, and I wanted there to be a love interest between the two. Where I differed was I wanted my two characters to be able to get together. And so I wanted them to someday marry. It took 2 years in Timber Creek time, but in real time, that was spread over 9 books and 9 years.
Right.
I realized when one of my readers, who is a sister of one of my good friends, passed on, that if I didn't get those two married, she was going to scream. So I decided, okay, it's time to marry those two.
Well, I got to meet J.A. Jance. She was at Killer Nashville this year. I think she's like 82 years old,
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, she was amazing, and I think most of her books are in South Dakota, if I remember right. But a lot of great stuff, a lot of history there. So yes, she's a great. Those are great authors to get inspiration from.
Yes.
So 10 books in. You said 2 years time.
Yes.
And now we've got the new book. And I will say, when I first heard the title of the new book, I'm like, wow, that's a really cool title. And
Yeah.
when I kept hearing it, I'm like, what does it mean? Dying Cry. It's like, is this some type of hidden
Right.
message or something like that? So tell us what your characters are up to in your latest book, which comes out a week from today.
Dying Cry. The title was actually given to me by Matt Martz, who is the publisher now at Crooked Lane Books. He acquires my books, but he no longer edits them because he was promoted to being the publisher. I just loved that title, and as soon as he sent it to me in an email, my mind just filled with a canyon, like is on that cover, and hearing someone scream and having it reverberate down the canyon as it dies off. And that's why that's the way the book starts. Is that's happens in chapter 1. Maddie and Cole are at a resort, and they're teaching Cole's children how to snowshoe. And so they enter this canyon and they hear a scream. Maddie immediately goes into cop mode, and she's like, oh, you take these kids back to the resort right now and get help. And Robo and I will go into the canyon and try to find whoever this is that needs our help. And so that's how it starts. They do find the person. The person is dead, which is the way a lot of murder mysteries start. Mm-hmm. And they soon find out that it's actually somebody they know, and it becomes pretty personal right away. So Maddie is faced in the end of this book with the biggest challenge she's ever had as a canine handler. And I loved writing the climax of this book, and I hope readers love it just as much as I loved writing it.
So really the title came first, and then you
Yeah.
built the story around the title, which
Mm-hmm.
which I've had a few books I've done that way too. And I've always wondered, I always like to hear authors who say, yep, I had a title. In this case, it was given to you by someone else.
Right.
But that title definitely brings things to mind as soon as you hear it. It's like, what could make a great story? So yeah, that's fabulous. So when you got that, you sat down, so you had all these ideas running in your mind, Dying Cry, and then you just sat down and started writing it, or do you like plot everything out first, outline it all?
Several years ago, my agent and my publisher determined that my advance would be split among different things that I would submit. And one of those things was an outline.
So you're kind of financially obligated to do an outline these days.
So I had outlined. I didn't outline Killing Trail. It took me years to write it, years to revise it. Right. We had 2 a 2-book contract, and I knew the deadline for the second book, which was not even started yet. And my editor at that time, Nikki Power, wanted an outline. And she said, it doesn't have to be, bullet points or anything like that. I just want a loose paragraph or a few paragraphs about what's going to happen in each act of the book. And so it was really more like a synopsis. And so I was able to write the next the first 4 books, book 2, 3, and 4, that way. At that point, she wasn't requiring that, and I just started writing the books. I found when I wrote book 5 that it needed a major revision at the time that I met my deadline, and I was just like, oh boy, maybe I need to go back to kind of having more of a guideline before I start. Anyway, the last 3 or 4 books that I've written for Crooked Lane, I have had an outline, and I have enjoyed getting them more and more detailed as the years have gone by. It helps me so much when it's time for me to put those words down on the page. I can write so much faster if I have this outline. Typically, my outline ends right around chapter 20 or chapter 22. And then I kind of say, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'll figure it out. And Matt has learned to trust me that I will. Sure. So it meets his goal or his criteria, because I think all he wants to know really is what's going to be the topic, what's going to be the premise, what are the themes of the book. That's what he needs to know as he's planning the books for his fall season. So, it meets both of our needs. And my writing does really slow down as I reach that end part of the book, especially the book I'm writing right now for 2026. Right. Oh, my goodness. I was not prepared for writing the climax of this book, but I've gotten there. I finished it today, and I plan to send it to Crooked Lane tomorrow. So yay, this is a celebration.
So do you usually feel like you have a pretty good idea how it's going to end, or do you think it kind of evolves as you're writing it and you go and things change?
Yeah, things kind of change, really. In Die and Cry, it changed a lot. I wasn't anticipating using the ending that I did. I just loved getting into that ending and the way it turned out, as Maddie Robo and her chief deputy Brody is her backup officer when she's working out in the forest. And they're finding something that is really pointing directly to who the bad guy is. And then take it from there, and it has become very personal, and she learns that her family's in jeopardy. So Maddie has to really hustle there at the end of that book.
So 10 books, and you've got number 11, you say you're turning in. So how have your main characters evolved through the series, other than they got married, obviously? But have they changed, evolved? Do you feel like they've really grown a lot through the series?
Maddie came to the series in Killing Trail with so much baggage and repressed memories. And so a lot happens in those first 4 books, specifically as Maddie is starting to remember some of what happened in her childhood. And she discovers things about herself that she didn't know. And the things she believed were true were not true. She actually was abandoned in childhood at about age 6 when the man who she thought was her father tried to kill her mother. And she called the cops, and they came. Mom went to the hospital, dad went to prison, and before she knew it, she and her brother were in foster care. And when mom got out of the hospital, she did not come for them. She more or less disappeared. So all of that gave me so much fodder to discover actually along the way what actually happened to Maddie those first 6 years of her life. And some bodies fall along the way, and as she discovers her past. And it's all wrapped up by book 8, but it takes that long for Maddie to remember things, for her to actually experience some therapy that she goes through outside of her work. I did a lot of research about that, and was told that, it's not frowned on at all for police officers to get therapy. Anything that might better their mental health is acceptable as long as they're doing their job. So I also had Maddie suffered quite a bit of severe abuse in those first years of her life. And I consulted with a psychotherapist about what can I expect from Maddie's relationships with men. And she was like, anything from I want nothing to do with them to I am very happy in my marriage and I'm very healthy with my male relationships. Right. So I was like, okay, I can make Maddie as healthy as I want her to be as the series goes along, and I wanted her to be healthy. So at this point in their lives, Cole and Maddie have grown quite a bit. They've learned quite a bit about themselves, and they're very happy together. I did have some folks talk to me about how you just can't marry the two protagonists. And all along, I intended to have them marry. I thought maybe that would be the end of the series when they married. Mm-hmm. But in talking with Matt Martz and in talking with Terry Wolf, my agent, we all determined that the readers really wanted those two to get married. I had letters constantly saying, this is the right track, they need to marry. So we did it in book 9, the very last chapter. Maddie and Cole got married. And in this book, book 10, Don't Cry, is the first book where they are a married couple and they're all living together as a family.
So did Robo help with her therapy as well in helping her heal? Obviously, animals are a great, there are certain therapy dogs, even they're trained for that way. Robo's more of a hunter, a tracker type of dog.
Right.
But did he help her with as well in part of that healing process?
That was my intention from the word go, was to show that human-animal bond that people develop with their dogs, whether they're companion dogs or working dogs. And Robo, one of the things Maddie has to learn as a canine handler is to trust her dog. And she doesn't trust anyone when they're paired together. So Robo is the first being that she learns to trust. And it goes from there. He helps her establish friendships in her department. And in book 11, the sheriff even tells Maddie how she and Robo have developed an esprit de corps in their department that they never had before. And so, yeah, the whole department rallies around Maddie and Robo. One of the officers I interviewed as I was doing my research before I started book one talked to me about how important the officers in their department, in the jurisdiction that they're working in, are to a canine team, because they establish the perimeter and they back up the team and they make sure that the team can accomplish their work. So I've tried to bring that out in the series too, because the officers in the department love Robo too, and everybody wants to keep him safe and keep Maddie safe and as they work.
So is he the only canine in that department?
He is.
Yeah.
It's a very small jurisdiction in a mountain town, and they are the first canine unit that the town could afford. In fact, the Robo, these dogs are very, very expensive. You know, it's nothing to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on a fully trained dog. And the town merchants and the ranchers around the town of Timber Creek actually gathered together a fund in order to purchase Robo for the sheriff's department, because they had been threatened by drug traffic coming into town, and the kids in the school were popping up with drugs. In fact, one of the characters' daughter had died prior to the book starting. Well, that's actually one of the characters' daughters is actually the one who was killed in the first book, and the drug trade is part of why she was killed. So, yeah.
Yeah, those dogs are incredible. I've seen them in action. I did Citizens Police Academy, and
Yeah.
you see that bond and between them and the animals. But they're so powerful. They're so fast, and every time I see one, I'm thinking, why would any criminal? You know, they sit there, usually warn them and say, "Okay, we're going to send the dog in if you don't come out on your own." And they seem to think they're going to get away. It's like, not going to happen. I'm sorry. And you're going to pay for it, because they usually lock on and they don't let go until they're told to let go. Or at least in Westminster here in the police department here, they say they don't have a release command. They just pull them off.
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel good, I'm sure. So you have they have a couple other dogs as well, right? You have Bruno and Belle, right?
That is right.
Yeah. And one is a Burmese sheepdog, and the other one's a Doberman.
Yes.
So are they more pets, or do they get a little more into the action as well?
So Belle is actually discovered in book one in Killing Trail. Yeah. And she is actually the victim's dog. And the victim is one of Cole's daughter's friend. So Belle ends up in Cole's clinic. Maddie brings him in. They had never met before. And he's like, "Oh, I know this dog. This dog belongs to my daughter's friend." And they had not identified the victim yet. So it was like, you know, we know who this victim is. Right. So that happens right away. And the kids fall in love with Belle, Cole's children, Sophie and Angie. And then when the owner comes to get Belle, everybody is so sad. And it turns out that Belle is really sad at home too. And so he goes ahead and gives the dog to the kids. So that's how they get Belle, and she's a Bernese mountain dog. Right. And then, those dogs are so great. I've never had one, but we have friends who have them. They're such great dogs.
They're big too, aren't they?
They're big dogs.
Yeah.
And They are
Probably eat like a horse too, right?
they are working dogs, but a lot of them, in today's times are pets. Um, so then Bruno turns up in Stalking Ground, and he's a big tough guy, and he's protective of his property, and one thing leads to another, and in the end, Cole ends up with Bruno.
Uh-huh.
I won't tell you how
Yeah.
because that's part of the story.
Yeah. So have you had, you didn't have a Burmese, but have you had Dobermans and German Shepherds? What type of dogs have you had in your lifetime?
We mostly had cattle dogs back in the day. We had Australian shepherds and border collies, some pets that our children had, house dogs, little dogs. Of course, the border collies and Australian shepherds could be house dogs too. It just depended on the dog. And then we ended up with pointers,
Hmm.
labs and pointers. So right now we have one German short hair pointer, and then we've had two, but we've ended up, the other one died of old age last year. So I've never had a German Shepherd, and I have in my newsletter that just went out last week. There was a picture that a client of Charlie's sent me of a German Shepherd puppy that looks just like Robo probably looked as a puppy. And oh my goodness, I was wanting a puppy so badly. But I don't know. Maybe we did have a Rottweiler one time, and we had her really well trained, and she was a great guard dog. Our children were latchkey kids because we were both working, and yeah, she was in the yard, and we were hoping that nobody would mess with our kids. That was back in the day where it wasn't quite as scary as it is now. But yeah, Ilsa was her name, and she was a great dog.
Yeah, you had the little coffee thing that we did at Left Coast Crime where we kind of got together, several of us, talking about our dogs, our personal dogs. We have our dogs that are in our books, and Jody Burnett was there, and Kathleen Donnelly was there, and I had just come out with a new book with a canine in it as well, and it was really fun talking about all of our dogs in real life and stuff, and all the great stories because they really are part of your family. And
Yeah, yeah.
and you hate it when you love it when you have them, but then they you always outlive them in most cases. So that's
Mhm.
always the hard part about it. But definitely
Mhm.
great. So you've got book 11. Is there going to be a book 12
There might
pretty
be.
soon? Yeah.
There might be. It's
Yeah.
not under contract yet, but I do know that they want one. So
Okay.
we are going to have to take care of that detail later. But yeah, I think there will be a book 12.
Do you have an idea in mind on what that book will be, or is it kind of just you just finished this one and you're like
Yeah,
uh, not even thinking that far ahead?
yeah. I do know that I kind of have an idea of the drug that I want to use. There's usually a drug involved that might
Yeah.
be also a veterinary drug. So I kind of have some ideas about that. Don't really have a solid idea yet, but I hope to have one by Christmas. Maybe that'll be my Christmas gift, an idea that finally solidifies in my head.
So we're about 50 minutes here. We usually go about an hour, sometimes we go over. I didn't know if you're under any time constraints or anything.
I'm fine.
Okay. Because I do have a few more questions to ask you. So, um, is there a book that you want to write that you haven't written? Maybe something different, anything rolling around in the back of your mind, maybe sitting in a filing cabinet? Not those ones that you don't want, I want to have to see the light of day, but
Not
something
those.
different at all?
not those already written ones sitting in a filing cabinet. There is possibly a children's book, a chapter book. I'm talking like, maybe third, fourth, fifth graders,
Yeah.
uh, involving a canine and a family. So that's a possibility. But as far as other adult books, there really isn't. I have been so involved with this idea of Timber Creek
Hmm.
and the canine, and these characters are like family to us and my family. My one daughter of mine works in the healthcare system, and she even sent me books about Maddie and her mental health and the types of therapies that might help her.
Sure.
So we're very entrenched in the Timber Creek Canine Mysteries in our family, and I find it hard to even think about other books, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy reading other authors' works, both canine and I pretty and other mysteries, and I pretty much stick to crime fiction reading these days.
Hmm.
But I have not been tempted to write outside of this mystery series.
No spin-offs, or maybe some characters, secondary characters, maybe getting their own books, or maybe stories where they're more the front character and they're Maddie and Cole are kind of in the background. Nothing like that percolating in your mind.
No,
Yeah,
actually not.
yeah.
I'm just
You're
I,
happy.
I'm I'm pretty pleased. The one thing that might happen
Yeah,
is that in book 9, I brought Maddie to the Pacific Northwest,
yeah.
and that book is called Gathering Mist.
Right.
Maddie is on a search and rescue mission to
Which
try
I
to
keep
find
copy.
a soul. Oh, you got it. Yeah. Look at that cover.
Yeah, that
I'll
looks
just,
like the Northwest, right? Yeah. No.
yep. I'll tell you a little story about that cover. But anyway, she's in search of a celebrity's missing son. And people have written to me they really enjoyed the new setting. And I thought, maybe Maddie needs to do another mission. Or another thing that canine officers do is they go to regional trials where the dogs, show off their skill set. So it could be that she would travel to a regional trial. Um, anyway, I'll, I, I'm really thinking about that possibility for book 12.
Yeah.
Gathering Mist and this cover. When we were trying to find the cover for Standing Dead, which is set in the beetle-killed forests of Colorado,
Right.
this cover was submitted by the designer. And I was like, no, that's not Colorado.
Mhm.
That is not a beetle kill forest in Colorado.
No.
That is a Pacific Northwest forest.
Right.
Look at those mossy trees. We
Yeah.
have mossy trees like that
Yeah.
in
Everywhere.
on
Yeah.
our property. So I saved the cover because I absolutely loved it. And that cover inspired the book. So I wrote the book to match that cover. And then when it came time for the team at Crooked Lane to receive my document that usually has snippets of descriptions of the terrain that I'm writing about, and I also summarize what's happening in the plot and summarize any ideas I have for cover. Instead of sending that, I sent this cover. And I
Mhm.
said, this is the perfect cover for this book. And I got an email back. That's wonderful. This is the easiest cover season we've ever had. and so that was the cover. I just love it. That's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a pretty cover, and your characters sometimes have to get outside their
Yeah.
areas, and sometimes it's outside their comfort zone as well. It's more challenge, and
Right.
different people and different bad guys and
Mhm.
or girls, as the case would be.
Yeah.
So, what was I was gonna do there? So how has your writing? You feel like has changed through the years the way you write? Obviously, your processes has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, you feel like you've grown as a writer, but do you feel like it's gotten easier for you to write the books or harder?
I wish I could say it was easier. I don't know how you feel, but the more books you write, for me, the more I edit myself as I'm going. And I try very hard not to go back and edit the writing that I did the day before because my process involves trying to get 1,000 words per day, 5,000 words per week. And that way I can take a little break 1 or 2 days during the week for my tendonitis to kind of rest up a little bit.
I got you there. My right hand is, I'm constantly having to flex that right hand of mine because it gets,
I know. I know. Somebody once said, if you continue to write, you will feel pain. It's like, yes, yes. It's not just mental pain, it's pain in your body too. But yeah, I do try to get that 5,000 words a week so that I can meet my deadline. I want to stay on track. So that has probably changed over the years, and I've been in a rhythm for the past few years that really works for me, and I
Mhm.
can get that rough draft done in 4.5 to 5 months. But yeah, my brain is constantly saying, "Oh, that sentence is awkward," and and I'm so tempted to go back the next day and correct everything. But I try to wait until I've got the first draft, and then I go in and try to find all of those awkward sentences and correct it. And I only do rereading that's necessary for um, reminding myself something that happened in the story. I keep a chapter template that I handwrite it, that I keep in a ring binder for every chapter that I write, and it on that template it has room for the new characters that I've introduced and what Maddie's how Maddie's goals change during that chapter and that kind of thing. So that kind of keeps me on track. And if I have to refer back, I can do it in my templates rather than having to go back in the manuscript. So that's kind of my process, and it has evolved through the years, but it really works for me. Now, one thing that I used to do that I don't do anymore because I've gone to the template system, but I used to keep a trifold poster board, kind of like the kind that kids use in science fairs to put
Uh-huh.
their projects up. And
Sure.
I drew a chapter grid on it to have about 30 chapters. And I would use sticky notes, pink for Maddie, blue for Cole. And I would put on the sticky notes on each box what happened in that chapter. But I found that I didn't have enough room in on a sticky note to put all the information that I really needed. But that was kind of a cool way. I learned that at a writing conference. It was kind of a cool way to put together a book. I liked that a lot.
Did you turn that in as part of your outline?
Right,
Here's my outline. It's all sticky notes here
right.
on a big piece of paper or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I've had you on the show before, and I've asked you this question. I will ask you it again, but I might word it a little differently. Bringing life to characters. So I'm going to twist it a little bit, though, and I'm going to say, what is it when you're reading a book that you're looking at and you say, "Wow, that's a really good character"? What makes them stand out to you? What brings them to life?
Gosh. There can be so many things. There's those larger than life characters like Jack Reacher, for example, the
Literally large, right? Yeah.
literally large, the
It's
Lee Child creation. And Andrew Child now writes those books. I still love those books. I still love Jack Reacher.
Mhm.
Lee Child said at a workshop I was listening to him in one time that he was standing in the bookstore and this lady had one of his books and he said, "I hope you enjoy that book. I wrote it." And she said, "Are you Jack Reacher?" So yeah.
That makes
Sometimes
the character, and that's what was important to her. Yeah, he wrote it, but Jack Reacher was the character in that.
I know, and she thought Jack Reacher wrote the book. I think that's really bringing life to a character. If
Right.
if you've got a character like that that just pretty much takes everything over. But the Kinsey Millhone, the alphabet mysteries that Sue Grafton wrote. Kinsey Millhone was one of my favorite characters. And no, she's not larger than life, but she has an incredibly interesting backstory. And she has an incredibly interesting way that she views her world. And I just fell in love with her, and I just wanted to know year after year what she was doing in her life. And those mysteries, I reread them; they never get old. So to me, I guess maybe that was a little inspiration to bring a character to life is make sure that they're interesting. Make sure that, no, I can't relate to Jack Reacher. I'm nothing like Jack Reacher, but I admire what Jack Reacher is trying to do. But so there has to be some way you relate to that character.
Mhm.
Um, I, I guess that's what comes to mind when you ask that question.
Right.
Um, and and I don't know all the answers. Definitely don't know all the answers, but
Well, some characters, they just have that one it thing that just grabs us, and that's what we kind of aspire to do when we're writing our characters. And in a series like you're doing there, and Reacher's the same way, you're able to evolve that character over time. I always find it, to me, it would be difficult to flesh out a character if it's just a one story standalone. You can try to throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall about how they're broken internally or however what else. But on a series, you can kind of bleed that out. And like you said with Maddie, that's what you did. It took a long time for her to deal with the ghosts of her past.
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
and that's important. So,
yes.
so awards. I know you've won a few awards for your books, and I actually stole this from. So this is all your books right there.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's the
And starting in the bottom right is one, and then it goes all the way to the left, and then all 10. Oh, and do you have a favorite?
I
I know that's like asking who's your favorite child, but
it
is there
really
one that really
is.
stands out, or is the latest one the one you say that's the one I really like?
Uh, I do really like Die and Cry.
Mhm.
I really hope readers like it. I love it. So, but it's the newest baby, right?
And and obviously the books are written to be read as they can be read individually as standalones, but
Yeah.
to really get the full effect and the evolution and the personal aspects, really you should start at the beginning and read through them. And obviously, as an author, you want them to buy all 10 books, hopefully as well. But they can be read out of order if you want.
They sure can. They
Yeah.
sure can. And libraries buy these books. So if you don't feel like you can buy all 10 books, you might be able to find them at a library or ask your librarian to get the books. Currently, those first few books are not available, but they will be reprinted and they will be available at some time. So
Great. And you may be able to find used ones as well running around there.
that's possible. Mm-hmm.
I saw one of my books on Amazon. One of my first books, Tracking a Shadow. The person would put it up there and they were selling it for $80. And they go, it was signed by the author. And I'm like, well, I'm glad
Wow.
you think you're going to get $80 for my book, but I wish I could get part of that if that was true. But I have a feeling that one went unsold or the price came down over time. So anyway, so I know you've won a few awards for your books through the years. Any that jump out that you want to plug?
The Willa Award, it's granted in name of Willa Cather for Western stories that involve women or girls. Mm-hmm. And it is granted by Women Writing the West. It's their literary award for print books. They also have one for stories and manuscripts. Two of my books won a Willa Award, and two other books were finalists in the in their category of mystery or contemporary fiction. That sometimes the category changed over the years. And then Standing Dead, number 8, was a finalist for a SPUR Award, which is granted by Western Writers of America, and that was very exciting for me. Very exciting. The winner that year was Craig Johnson with his Longmire.
Oh, wow.
Book. Yeah.
Tough competition there.
There's a little competition there.
I want to get him on the show, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him yet. So maybe one day I'll get lucky. So
okay, fingers crossed. He's fun. Yeah. He's fun to listen to for sure.
Yeah, I've seen a few of his interviews.
You would have a blast interviewing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for those people that want to be authors, you got any marketing tips? What obviously persistence in your case, 10 mm-hmm. years of your life to get that first book, but any other good things? And you mentioned some of it going to the conferences, obviously.
Yeah, that's number one, I think, for writers who are learning the craft is go to those conferences, find something locally that you can go to. As far as marketing tips, that's so tough. That is so tough. Everybody says your newsletter is your best tool because you own that list when people sign up for your newsletter, and your audience is there because they want to see your newsletter. So that's something to get started. My agent has told the people that she represents that you must be on social media, you must have a platform, or she's probably not going to be able to sell your book because editors are looking for writers who are already started and already have a way to promote their own books. Gone are the days 30, 40 years ago where the publishing house promoted the books. We do promote, those of us who are traditionally published, as well as those who are self-published, we're all promoting our own books at this point. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of traditionally published authors that, a lot of the marketing is not done anymore by them. They may do a little bit, but you're still got to get out there and.
Crooked Lane has been good at doing advertising in the industry magazines, and that helps a lot. But when it comes to the everyday, they get me all my reviews from the industry publications as well. So that, that's wonderful. So I'm not complaining, but I do have to do all of that daily social media and things like that myself. Crooked Lane's marketing department will make me graphics at times, especially if we have like a Barnes and Noble sale going on or an Amazon sale going on. They'll provide me with a graphic that I can use on my social media.
And then I know you're coming to Colorado for some events. Are you packed yet?
I will be in 2 days.
You're leaving here soon. And I
We're,
borrowed this from
oh,
one of your things. So you've got the different stuff. So I know you're going to be in Berthoud on the October 11th. And Kim and I are hoping to get up there for that.
oh, I hope so. I hope
It's a
to see you.
Saturday. Yeah.
Yes,
And then
with
Fort
Kathleen.
Collins. So that's kind of your old stomping grounds there.
Yes. Yeah. And then in Monument at Covered Treasures Bookstore. Then we'll be headed for Arizona for one event and then back home to Washington.
And yeah, in Arizona, I know Scott Graham as well. I met him at Left Coast Crime. I've had him on the show. And of course, I know Kathleen. So that I wish I could get to that one as well. That would be great. And then you have J.A. Jance you're going to be with in Washington.
Yes, one of my heroines and role models. Yes, I actually met her at Killer Nashville years ago. You mentioned you had met
this year, yeah.
And we just kind of befriended each other. It was, it was just a wonderful way to be able to meet her, and she has been kind and has endorsed a book for me. And last year we were at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park together, and we decided to do a repeat this year. So very excited about that.
Yeah, it was fun. We were in Killer Nashville. She got on the elevator. We were on the elevator, and there was a lady there, and we were riding the elevator up, and she goes, "Do you mind? Can I get a picture with you?" So the lady's taking a picture while we're standing in the elevator, and I had to wait for the doors. The doors open, and then she said, "Oh, great! Thank you so much." She was so excited about that.
Yes, yes. We have our fan moments, don't we? We all do.
Yeah, every now and then, yes, we get one. All right, so I know you've got your website. All your books are available through everybody, I'm assuming, right? You're widely
released. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. They're distributed, and the ebook, audiobook, and print books. Paperbacks typically come out about 11 months after the hardcover does. Everything is now in paperback except for the new book, Die and Cry. It'll come out in about 11 months.
And you said audiobooks as well?
Yes, audiobooks, ebooks, and the hardcovers come out at the same time. Mm-hmm. So Die and Cry will have all 3 versions available.
And you, of course, narrate the audiobooks, right?
I don't. You're teasing.
A lot of work. Everyone says, "Why don't you do your own?" I'm like, "Do you realize how much time is involved with that?"
Nancy Wu is an actress, actually, and she's now pretty much focusing on book narration. She's narrated the whole series, and she's also narrated Die and Cry. So she does such a great job. I have nothing to do with that. It's done by Dreamscapes and Blackstone. So those publishing houses did the audio version.
Well, that's great. You're lucky that you've got the same narrator, because a lot of times that's difficult over such a long series like that. So that's fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything. Anything else you want to say?
Oh, no.
Your voice will survive?
Yes. And I do want to say thank you, because you're such a great interviewer. I enjoy visiting with you, and thanks for having me this year as a repeat guest.
Yeah, I think you're my first repeat. So yeah, so you get to go into the Hall of Fame on my show for now.
Oh,
if I ever put one together, I'll need to put it on the wall back here in my Hall of Fame of people on. But no, it was great. I'm glad you're on, and hopefully next year about this time, because your books usually come out about a year apart. Maybe we'll talk about the next one. I don't
I
know if
do.
you can give us a hint what the title will be, but
Yeah, I had to submit 10 titles. We have not chosen one yet.
okay,
I definitely have a favorite, but
yeah.
I hate to say it in case that's not the one that it ends up with. So I did that one time and the title was changed, and I had somebody write to me and say, I thought you said the title.
They have
So
long
yeah,
memories, don't they, out there?
I do hesitate now to jump the gun on the title for sure.
Well, I'm sure we're looking forward to seeing. Dying Cry will be a tough one to beat. That one was one when you told me that title, and I can't remember. It was like 6, 9 months ago, whenever it was. I'm like, wow, that just brought so many thoughts to my mind. Like you said,
Me too.
when he mentioned it to you, you're like, wow, that story just where could I go with that and stuff. So, well,
Yeah, I love the kind of a little play on words, with the dying in the canyon, but also with it being the final cry or the dying cry of the person. So,
right.
yeah, boy, pretty grim.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Margaret. Great seeing
Thank
you again. Like I said, we're hoping to get up to Berthoud on Saturday, and get to see you and Kathleen, and hopefully, I'm sure you guys are going to talk about your books, which will be great. And I'll try not to stand up and tell everybody I know the answer to that question.
thank you so much for this visit tonight, and I sure hope we see you Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be great. And I will send you the links and stuff that you can share on your website. It's actually the same YouTube link and stuff, but and I'll give you a copy of the recording that you can download if you want to put that on your website. So
Okay. Okay. And
thank
I'll
you. Safe travels to Colorado, and be prepared for all those crazy weather.
okay, pack layers, it sounds like.
That's right. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being on. I don't have a show next week. In 2 weeks, I'll have Jennifer Shaw on, an author, and it'll be at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. It'll be the Tuesday, 2 weeks from today as well. A little bit later, since she is on the West Coast, if I remember right. So but I'll have her on. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week.